You are here on purpose with a purpose by design and not by default. And it is your time right now to share your story on Right Now. Hello and welcome back to Right Now, an author's platform. I'm so excited to have you here today because continuing in our series of the Women of the Power Voice, I have with me another amazing collaborative author. I would like to introduce my friend, business partner, all these different things in my life, amazing woman, funologist. Yes, I said funologist. And you've heard me say that I'm a funologist. So I take that title very, very seriously and only share it with those that truly have earned it. So with us today, my friend, Kathy. Welcome, Kathy.
Oh, thank you. Woo, woo. So I love that name, a funologist. I had not heard you say that before.
Funologist. I earned that title from my family. They said that I was the funologist. If we were going to go on a trip or go anywhere, Dad would plan the course, but I would plan the fun. So I became known as the funologist, as you are. So you guys are all here for a treat today because you have two funologists in the house at Right Now. So number one, best-selling international author, Kathy.
Oh,
in the house. Tell us, Kathy, who are you?
So, well, now that I have a new title, I am a funologist. I'm so excited to have that title. And by trade, I am an accountant. And actually, I can't really say that anymore because I left the corporate world. I am no longer an accountant, but I can do it, and it comes quite easily to me. But nowadays, I am a mindset mentor, and I also own a virtual reality company. I live in Utah, and my hobby is snowshoeing and hiking in the beautiful Utah mountains. So that is who I am in a nutshell. Do you want me to expand on that?
Well, I do have one place for expansion, I think. Tell us, what does that mean to be a mindset mentor? What is that?
Well, I'm really glad you asked me that because I didn't know what it meant either. A year and a half ago, I was like, what in the world is a mindset mentor? And I came upon Les Brown's Power Voice course at that point in time, which catapulted me to Thinking into Results with John Talarico, which is the Bob Proctor course. And it teaches you how to control your thoughts and how to teach people also how to think the right thoughts so that they can bring more joy, more abundance, whether that's money, whether that's happiness, whether that's love, into their lives. Because we're all living on different frequencies. And if you are on the happiness frequency, you bring more abundance into your life. So I teach people how to do that, how to get on that happiness frequency and bring more abundance into their lives.
So being a funologist just falls right into that, doesn't it? It's a requirement, actually, for my mentoring, don't you think?
Oh, totally. Totally. And, when I just talking about being a funologist, I literally just slid down the mountain the other day on my butt. Not a sled, on my butt.
On purpose? Was this a purposeful slide?
Oh, it was totally on purpose.
I'm getting a visual here.
It was the easier way to get down the mountain than to hike down the ice. So I was like, I'm going.
And did you run into anything on the way down?
No.
No trees or branches down, just sliding. I love it. Sounds totally like you. Absolutely. Well, my partner in not just business, but funology, I'm so glad that you are here. And we're so excited to hear more about you as well as about your chapter in the internationally famous book, The Women of the Power Voice. So let's jump in there. And I would like to ask you this question first. The Women of the Power Voice. Yes, that's the title of the book that you are a co-author in. But that title, I find, has meaning to everybody and a little bit of a different meaning as you put those words together. So if you can separate it from just the title of a book to a statement, what does Women of the Power Voice mean to you?
Into just a statement, for me, it means to dig deep and find your lost voice. Because my voice was lost, and I was hiding behind spreadsheets and whatnot. To find your lost or invisible voice and bring that to the surface and share it with the world. And so that would be my statement.
Find your lost voice, bring it to the surface, and share it with the world. When I hear you say that, I think about like deep sea treasure, like a shipwreck somewhere, and you go down to look at the ship, but you find a treasure that you are going to not just surface, but when they surface it, bring it to the surface and there's a treasure, they always they clean it up. And then, do you remember when maybe you saw it, but when they were having Titanic stuff on Titanic and it was going from place to place? Well, the way that came up from out of the water wasn't the way it looked when it was on display.
Right.
Yeah. So much to that statement of finding that lost voice, bringing it to the surface and sharing it with the world. That is so powerful. So with that, why don't we jump in and tell us a little bit about you, your backstory, kind of bring us up to the point of where we can talk and dive in a little bit more of a deeper dive into your chapter. But really, I guess I should use the word deeper dive here. Let's take a deeper dive into you that will lead us up to your chapter. So take it away. Tell us all about you.
Oh, awesome. So, well, I'm not going to go super, super deep because I do have a book coming out in 2022 called Unleash the Warrior Within.
Oh.
And so that is my personal memoir, and that I believe it will be released the end of January, first part of February. And so a lot of my personal stories will be in that as well. But as far as I go in my chapter within this book, I'm actually going to kind of skip over my childhood. It was a high level, very, very highly volatile, my parents screamed all the time. They screamed at each other. They yelled at us, and was a very unsettling childhood. And so more of that will actually be in my book coming out next year, like I said. But I'm going to actually bring you to when I got married to my former husband. His name is Mike. He's the father of my children. And we have two beautiful children together. We are no longer together, though. And so when I was about 17, 18 years old, I met Mike. And I stole his watch at school. And then we were both police cadets together. We were both Murray City police cadets here in Utah. And he wanted to become a police officer. And I personally did not want to become a police officer. The police cadet program was for high school students. And I didn't want to pursue police work because I'm too emotional. And so that I just couldn't handle something like that. I was actually going to go into social work, but my police cadet advisor said that I had such a huge heart that he said, if you'll see things you can't unsee, and it will hurt you to the core. And so I chose the path of accounting. And like I said before, and so anyways, Mike and I we met, we fell in love. It was, we got married at a very young age because in Utah, that's just very normal. You get married at that point in time, 18, 19, 20. It's very normal to get married that young. And we had got told that if Mike wants to become a police officer, that we needed to wait about 5 years. Well, he is a police officer because all police officers change because of what they see. And, at that age, you're and you know, we were young, we were in love, and we're like, no, we love each other so much that we'll be able to get through anything that comes our way. And you know, back at that point in time, I believed that. I 100% believed that. And Mike was a police officer for probably, I believe, 12 to 15 years. I can't really remember the exact number, but he worked at the Utah State Prison. And then he also was a police officer for a local city here. And when you're a police officer or a first responder, and a lot of times it's more police officers because they're the first on scene, and they see horrible, horrible things, whether that's a traffic accident, whether that's a domestic violence, whether that's child abuse, anything like that. And Mike saw all of it. He saw all of that kind of stuff that happens when you're a first responder. And unfortunately, when you're a first responder, and this actually happened within the police force here, is they offer counseling, but it's the free counseling and not counseling like you need when you're a first responder or you're going through PTSD. And if you choose to go to get counseled, you actually, your coworkers think you're weak. And especially if you're male and you go to get counseling, your coworkers think you're weak, so that they actually make fun of you for doing that. And then your supervisors think you're weak as well, so you won't get promoted, which is unfortunate, because I believe all first responders and their families need counseling, and they need paid high-level PTSD counseling. And back in that time, I'm not going to say that I know what it is now, because I don't know if the local police officers get the counseling that they need now, but I knew back then they didn't. And I would bet that they probably still don't, and it's still to this day that they're actually getting not getting promoted, getting made fun of for getting counseled, which is unfortunate. It really, truly is. So Mike had actually seen some things that nobody really should ever see. And this is actually one of the things in my book. And he had to do CPR on a child that actually baked to death in a car. And when I say that, it's heartbreaking, because this little 3-year-old was just having fun and playing. And it was in the hot summer heat here in Utah, and he couldn't get out of the car after his older sibling got out of the car. And he was too weak too small. He was 3 years old. He couldn't open the door. And so it was when they found him, his body temperature was 130 degrees. And that was really, really hard on Mike, which affected me, his wife, which affected his kids. He went through a lot of PTSD because of it and wasn't able to get the counseling that he needed, like I said before. And throughout our relationship, he had always, and prior to me even meeting him, he had always had, he wanted to commit suicide all the time. And I don't know if that's the right word. He wanted to kill himself. He didn't want to be alive, even prior to me meeting him. So there was dips and valleys within our relationship, that he was super, super happy or super, super sad. And I always felt like when he was down on the dip, that I had to pull him up. And I felt that was my responsibility as his wife, as his partner, and as his mother to his children. And this went on for 22 years. And it was always great when it was great, but then when it was bad, it was really bad. And there was numerous times that he would say that and tell me that he wanted to kill himself because it would be better for me and the kids if he wasn't here. He had actually plotted how to kill himself and have the insurance pay for it because there in a lot of insurance policies there are clauses that if you commit suicide they won't pay out. And so that's really hard to hear when you're trying to be a wife, be a mother, trying to hold the household together. And when you hear these words come out of your spouse's mouth, you're like, what is it that I'm not doing to make you happy? And so we, like I said, we were together for 22 years. I tried very, very hard to hold the marriage together, to hold the family unit together. I was always raised believing in the Bible, and in the Bible it says not to get divorced. And so that was super hard for me to get to the point that I actually felt comfortable getting divorced. I lived with my parents who chose not to get divorced after having a miserable relationship. And so it took me 22 years. Well, we were together for 22 years, but we weren't married. We were only married for 17. But it took me that long to actually say, you know what? I can't do it anymore. I can't be responsible if you choose to do that. I can't say that that's it's on me anymore. And the straw that broke the camel's back is he had actually left one day to go sell one of his guns and to pay for the mortgage because we were actually hurting for money at that time. And he had left police work by then. And we had a family business that was struggling because of it was during 2008 when everything just kind of hit rock bottom. And he left and I could not get a hold of him for like 5 hours. And I literally thought that he finally did what he said he was going to do. And it's not like him to not call me back, not text me, and I couldn't find him. I ended up having to call his family. I was trying to figure out how to live life as a single mother, and which I felt like a single mom anyways, because when you have a husband that is mentally not stable, and then on top of that in police work or that type of work, they're not there a lot. And so I felt like I was a single mom anyways. But yeah, so I was trying to figure out how to live my life as a single mom. And I was so distraught because I couldn't figure out where Mike was. And finally, his brother actually found him in the Home Depot parking lot, plotting to kill himself. He was actually planning on doing that day. And so it was really hard. That was a really emotional day. I was so grateful that he didn't kill himself that day and relieved. And then I started to get angry. I started to get angry that I had to deal with this all the time. Yeah. I always felt like I had to pull him up from when he was in his dips to up here so that he could be okay to be my partner and then the father of my kids. And so that was the start of that was the beginning when I started to fall out of love with Mike. And, we stayed together. And even throughout all of our marriage, we went to couples counseling more than, probably 5 to 10 times. We've been to individual counseling. And then after this, we went to couples counseling. We went to counseling at the church that we were going to. And so it wasn't the fact that we didn't try. We tried. And I tried. And so it was about 3 years later, and I decided that I had enough, and I asked Mike for a divorce. And that was really hard for me to ask for a divorce because of my upbringing and the fact that I literally thought God would be mad at me for getting divorced. And I learned after that God wants me to be happy. And it's okay. He's like, and
go ahead.
So, but yeah, so God wants me to be happy, and God wants everybody to be happy. And you know, it'd be one thing if it was I tried for a week, but you know, I tried for years, and after that, I learned that God doesn't want me to wait for 22 years to figure out my life. And so, and like we all say, the universe loves speed. So, you know, 22 years of waiting, and within the last 10 years, my life is catapulted to like things I would never ever expect. And now I'm married to an awesome man who loves me dearly, and Mike loved me too. I'm not gonna say he didn't love me, but Jeff like loves me and respects me and supports me in any way, everything I do. And I'm super grateful for Jeff. And so, but there you go.
Wow. What a story, a backstory on you. So I wrote down a few questions. Can I circle back to them? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So the first one that I wrote down here was that, that you felt responsible for him. And I thought, how awful that must, I mean, to be in that situation where somebody is unstable like that to the point of, you know, really wanting to not be here anymore, you know, to be unstable like that, but that you would feel responsible for him. Like, what was that like for you? Where do you think that came from? What was that internal talk that made you feel like I can save him? Or at minimal, maybe I can't change him, but I can keep him alive. It's my job to keep him alive. It's my job to keep him here. That you would always take ownership of that, because the other questions that I have will build on that, but let's start there. Just peel back that layer a little bit for us. What was it about the whole thing that caused you to internalize that paradigm, that self-talk of, I'm responsible, it's all up to me?
You know, I believe it comes from me and my childhood. And I didn't know this at the time, but when growing up, I am an empath, and feeling all of the emotions and stuff in this volatile household. And when my parents would yell at each other and everybody all the time, I always felt like it was my job to make everybody happy. People didn't like me unless I made them happy. I've learned since all of this, that that's not my job. And I always I hate conflict. I believe it's part of the environment in which I grew up in, and who I am in general. But I just want people to be happy. So I felt like it was my responsibility to make sure and ensure that Mike was happy all the time. I felt like that was my job as his wife and as his partner in life. And if I didn't do that, then I failed my wifely duties. I don't know if that's really a word, but I just made it up.
What an incredible burden or cross you felt you had to bear. No, okay, for anybody that doesn't know, what does that mean that you're an empath?
It means that you can feel other people's energy, whether it's good or bad. You can feel it. And and I've had to learn how to block people's energy, like negative energy, out of my life, because being an empath and you feel other people's energies, it can either make you really, really sad because of how they're feeling, or it can make you really, really happy. So you have to control your own energy, and you have to be able to not absorb the energy of those people that are around you. So
that's a beautiful definition of that. And energy meaning those emotions, right? So if somebody is feeling really down, you tend to take that on yourself and start feeling down. With same way with probably anger or joy or anything else, right? So learning how to not be the world's caregiver, right? and carrying all of that burden of your husband, carrying all of that, and like looking for, okay, when am I going to feel the joy? When am I going to feel that happiness? You really disconnected from Kathy, didn't you? Because you no longer knew who is Kathy. I mean, that's the feeling, the sense that I get from it. It was like you had no idea even what your feelings were, what you were, where that energy level was at for you. Sad, mad, hurt, hardened over time, all of this stuff, because you were so busy carrying him. And then I can imagine then also carrying your children, because as mothers, we do that anyways. But now you were trying to probably shelter them from anything. And at some point, I get this visual that'll lead me to this next question of, when you have your car in park and you just rev that engine, eventually, if you don't stop doing that, you're going to hurt the engine. The engine is not meant to be, revved at 80 miles per hour in park. It's just not what it's made for. But when you are constantly in that space and place that you were for 22 years, or most of that 22 years, of always having to be on high alert like that, that would absolutely wreak havoc on you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and all other ways. And when you said, and I wrote this down, that that was enough, that you needed to get out because I wrote down, divorce meant to Kathy, she was no longer responsible. That was where it was for you. There was, in order to not carry that burden anymore, to be free from it, you had to get away from it. You had to totally separate from it so that you would not continue to go back to that same watering hole, right? That was full of muck and poison. Not saying anything about Mike. I'm just saying the situation. So when you came to that realization, I need to get out for my own mental health. I need to get out so that I no longer feel responsible. How did that unfold where you knew that you knew that you knew this is not healthy? I'm going to continue to try to take care of him. I'm going to continue to change him. It's not my responsibility. The only way I'm going to be able to change my responsibility feeling on the inside of me is if I get out. How did that kind of evolve, that you were brave enough and come to that place where you said that was it, that was all, and you made that decision? Because it sounds like there were things all the way along and you were like, okay, that's not right. That's not right. But there was a point in time for Kathy where she was like, that's it. Done. How did that happen?
It happened. Actually, I had gone through a course called The Great Life here in Utah. And exactly what you're saying is like, I had no joy. I didn't know what joy was. And that was like one of my goals, is I wanted to find joy. And because I learned how to fake happiness. And, when people see you on the outside and you're smiling, they think that everything on the inside is good. And I learned how to do that all my life. And so I had gone through Great Life, and it's basically getting down to the nitty gritty of who you are as a person and how to bring joy or bring whatever that goal is for you into your life. My personal goal was joy. I wanted to figure out how to have joy in my life and who Kathy was. And so I had gone through that course, and I learned that I could be happy on my own. I used to always think that I had to rely on whether it was Mike, whether it was something else in my life that was what was going to make me happy. And when I realized that I could do this on my own, at that point in time, I didn't realize that I could do and have anything I wanted. Sure. I just knew at that point in time that I wanted to have joy and that I could personally have it all on my own. And so that is what started me down this path. And then when Mike had gone and tried to commit his last attempt for suicide, and that's when I started to get angry, and I dug deep down. I'm like, I can actually do this on my own. And but like I said, at the same time, I was scared because I honestly 100% thought that God was going to be mad at me. I literally thought that. And at this point in time, my mom had passed away. So my mom passed away back in 2000, at the beginning of 2011. And she had stayed in an unhappy marriage. So I thought that that's what I was supposed to do. And I was like, oh, my mom's going to be so disappointed in me. I'm like, she did it. I'm supposed to do what she does. Wow. When honestly, she didn't want that. But that's just what back in the day, that's what I thought. And so going through all the great life, my mom passing away, and then me having the beliefs that I had in the Bible, it was a very hard point in time in my life, because I didn't want to disappoint my mom. I didn't want to disappoint God, but I knew I was stuck. And then when I decided that I wanted to have joy and I could be on my own, I was like, okay, it's okay. I'm like, God wants me to be happy. My mom wants me to be happy. And then that's when I started to break out of this shell that I was in. Oh.
That's really powerful. You know, religious, and I say religious because I look at religion as man-made. I'm not trying to put man in that a wrong God position here, but I feel like religion is man-made. It's, in fact, in the scriptures, Jesus himself talks about, I'm paraphrasing here, but that he came to give life, but that man will create religion, again, I'm paraphrasing there, but that there's so much of that mentality that is in religious organizations that literally puts people in bondage, when the scriptures clearly say that God, speaking of God as Jesus, that Jesus said, I have come to give them life and life abundantly. And one of the translations says, the abundant good life. So in what world would the abundant good life look like misery and the emptiness and the bondage that so many live in? And yet they live under that, thinking, I can't disappoint God. God's going to be mad at me. Eternity for me is now messed up because I'm making this choice. And then to live with that and think, okay, because I wanted to be happy, now my eternity might be totally messed up, and having to weigh that out. But you came to an understanding that I'd like you to peel back that layer a little bit. You came out of that demeaning mindset of God saying, stay there and be miserable or else, to understanding what Oral Roberts said for years. And he took so much slack for it because he came out as a minister saying, God is good. He wants you happy. He wants you well. He wants you prosperous. And so many people in other circles went, oh my gosh, how could you say that? And I think, Kathy, how can you not say that? Why would God not want you good, well, healthy, happy, and whole? Why would he not want that? Yet so many people trained up under that bondage of doctrine that says the opposite. And then they live these miserable lives. It's not giving the right glory to the heavens. And so how did you break out of that, being a person that was brought up? You're wanting to honor God, which is honorable, by the way. I tribute that that's an honorable thing, that we want to honor the great one. But how did you break out of that and realize that what you were doing, thinking was honoring God, was actually not? And come into that fullness of knowledge that he wants me happy, because you've said that many times. God wants me happy. God wants me happy. You were one of the most joyful people I know. So whatever you did worked. So peel that back a little further for us and show us, give us a little sneak in there. How did you come to that and break free from that old mindset that really had been pounded in you? Because your heart was for God, even though you didn't quite understand God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. So, and I actually was at that point in time, I was like, I'm going to hell.
Wow.
I literally thought that that's what I was going to do, because I chose to get divorced. And it was just because of how I was raised. And in the Bible, it was, you don't get divorced. And at this point in time, I was going to a non-denominational church, and my pastor was preaching that as well. I'm like, you don't get divorced. You figure it out. You don't get divorced. And I decided to peel back a little bit of the layers of that. Is I had to quit. I love the pastor in which I was at that church, but at the same time, he didn't understand what goes on behind closed doors.
Right. And
it wasn't the fact that I had to really sit and I had to really decide what was worth, what was my life worth? Is it to be miserable for the entire whatever I'm here for? Or is it to find that joy while you're here on this blue planet? I'm like, and it was, I can look back and I can put the pieces back that way. But when I was going through it, it was really, really hard. It was trying to decide if I am going to honor God by staying in my marriage, because that's what I thought, or if it's going to honor myself by getting out of my marriage and finding that joy, that happiness. And when I was going through everything, it was a lot of tears, a lot of heartache. It wasn't the fact that I knew that that was the right path for me at that point in time. I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. I was broken. And I'm super grateful that I chose to leave the marriage, because of the fact that now Mike had actually got the counseling that he needed. If I stayed in the marriage with him, he wouldn't have got the counseling that he needed. And now we're great friends. It wasn't always easy, but we're great friends to now we are. But I had to break that marriage vow with him, because we were both relying on each other to make each other happy.
Right.
And when we broke that marriage vow, and it made him get the counseling he needed to get out of the depression he was in. And then it made me find the joy that I so desperately was wanting in my life, and that I knew might not have really understood that it was there for me, but somewhere, like, I knew it was there, but I didn't know it was there. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So really, this could have saved Mike's life.
Oh, I 100% believe it did.
Wow. So is God good?
Yep.
All the time, right? That is really, really powerful. And you being sucked dry like, you know, a vacuum just sucking it out of you all the time. Who knows what if in that world things would have continued where you would have ended up at either, you know. So you broke out of that, realized, had a higher awareness that this is not the best life for you, or for Mike, or for your children for that matter, because we don't want to pass on that generational junk to our kids, that they grow up seeing that. And just like you had stated, growing up seeing it, this is what I'm supposed to do. And we just do it by rote. We just do it. It just becomes this habit, this paradigm of thinking. And we need to get outside of that box. We have to get outside of that box. And there's a whole world out there when we get out of that box and we can see the truth. And the truth indeed sets us free. So you find your joy. Mike is getting the help that he needs. You are married to a magnificent man. And I see your pictures all the time on social media. You guys just look like you are so happy. And you're sticking your tongues out, making funny faces and doing all that awesome stuff together. What has been like the trademark of your new life? And then, you know, that and what you have with your husband now, your trademark. What is kind of like, if you could say one mark on Kathy's life that would demonstrate or would specify or define her and how she lives now, and even your marriage now, what word or statement would you put on that?
Adventure.
Adventure. I love that. Okay, why? Why adventure? Tell us why.
I've done so much in the last 10 years since I had left my previous marriage than I did in the last 22 years prior. I've swam with sharks with Jeff, like free swam with sharks with Jeff. And I've gone skydiving a couple times. Like I said, I like to snowshoe. I like to hike. I've got a backpacking trip in Hawaii planned for next year. And it's just, I've learned that life is short. And especially when you find out more about me, I've had medical issues as well. And life is short. And so I want to be able to experience life. And I love to travel. I love to try new things. And the only thing I haven't decided that I really want to do is bungee jumping, because that kind of scares me. But you know, I love to go river rafting. We have a river rafting trip next year, planned to go to Jackson Hole. So you're all welcome to go if you want to go.
All right. Adventure. Yeah. So pretty much you weren't living your life back then. You were not having an adventure. You were not even just stagnant. You were stuck. There was no lust for life, no joy, no nothing. And you broke out of all of that. And now life is an adventure. And you have your joy, and you're a phonologist. It's just amazing, Kathy. So this brings us up to your chapter, which does echo a lot of the things that you have shared today. But, you know, giving somebody a peek into your chapter that hasn't read the book yet, or is bought the book but hasn't even cracked it open yet or something, what would you want to share? What do you want to share? Telling us a little bit, unpacking your chapter a little bit more. Why should somebody read your chapter? What is it going to do for them?
As far as my chapter goes, it's don't wait like I did. Don't wait for that 22 years to make your life count. Yeah. And that's the whole synopsis of my chapter is don't wait. It is called Living on the Edge, but now you can tell by what I said why it's called that. But yeah, don't wait 22 years, 22 months, 22 days, or 22 seconds. Live your life now.
Live your life. Live the adventure.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Live your life now. Now you had 22 years of not living your life or not living your adventure. You're now living it and will be living it for the rest of your days. What do you say to somebody who is thinking, but I've wasted too much time? I mean, it's been 30 years. I mean, it's been 40 years. I mean, come on, I'm 75 or whatever. Like maybe they're just thinking they shouldn't. I've wasted too much time, because I'm sure you even entertain those thoughts. I mean, come on, 22 years I've invested. Why would I change anything now? What would you say to that person?
So that I did have those thoughts. I had those thoughts when I was with Mike for that long. I also had those thoughts not recently, but a few years back, when I'm like, my mom passed away at the age of 62. And I was like, well, I only have like 10 years left. So why do I want to do anything different with my life? That's like in the back of my brain. And so I did have those thoughts. But really, whatever you believe in, whether it's God, whether it's the universe, whatever you believe in, is that really how he wants you to believe and live life? I don't believe that that's true. And honestly, life is meant to be lived. Life is meant to be lived. It is not meant to be, you're not here to be miserable. You're not here to be miserable. Whether you have a year left, whether you have 6 months left. When I got my cancer diagnosis back in 2014, you start to look at life differently. And if anybody's had any kind of terminal, I'm not saying mine was terminal, but any kind of medical diagnosis of any sort like that, you do look at life differently, because you're like, what did I do with my life? Ask yourself, what did you do with your life? Is it what you would be proud of when you're on your deathbed? If it's not, then why can't you change it now? I don't care how old you are. You can be 80. My dad's 81 years old. And there's some things I still make. I asked him to go do a TikTok dance with me the other day. And so why not have fun? I mean, life is meant to be lived and have fun. And if you are older or whatever, or you think that you've been in the relationship or whatever you are too long, whatever your version of too long or too old is, take some time to really think about, if you are on your deathbed and you tell your grandkids, your kids, or whoever is in your life, this was my life. Are you proud of it? Or are you not proud of it? And if you're not proud of it, you have the time to change. If you're hearing this, you have the time to change.
Have the time to change, everybody. Do you hear that? You have the time to change, just like Kathy did. And you can choose to do that today and break free. Kathy, what caused you to want to become part of the Women of the Power Voice book anthology?
Well, I absolutely adore Les Brown. And he has helped me through my journey of going through my cancer journey. And then also when I decided to join the Power Voice, and I said this at the very beginning, it's catapulted me into a new life that I didn't know was possible. And so I wanted to give honor to that Power Voice platform and also be part of this amazing anthology with you, because I love you and Yashica. And so I just wanted to be part of it. And I feel like it's a movement. I don't feel like it's just a book. It's a movement of some sort. And I don't know what that looks like. I just can feel it like in my being that it's a movement. Mm-hmm. And so that would be what it means for me, is one, I wanted to give honor to Les and what him and John had created. And then also to be part of this movement, and then also to be part with you and Yashica.
Wow, I love that. Well, first of all, I love you so much, and Yashica does too. We were so glad that you joined, to have your story, put in a writing capsule for all eternity is just amazing in and of itself. But I love what you were talking about with Les, that all that he had done for you, that Mr. Brown's ability to reach into your life and your soul and make a difference, that you wanted to pay that tribute and honor back to him through this anthology, which I have heard the similar stories so many times that this just, if we just keep going backwards on the trail here, we come back to this incredible man named Les Brown and how he has chosen to live his life changing others' lives, right? And all the lives that he's changed, that I've heard about, that you've heard about, and we've only touched the surface. So that is extremely, extremely powerful. I also liked what you said about it being a movement, because it is a movement of women making a difference in the earth with their voices, just as you said at the beginning, bringing them to the top and sharing them with the world. Okay, so in closing, is there anything else that you didn't get to say that you're going, oh, I really wanted to share that? And then finally, how do the viewers and listeners stay connected to you?
Yes, actually, I do want to share something. If you're listening to this or watching this, wherever you're watching it, I want you to turn on the music as loud as you can and go and dance. That's what I want you all to do.
Okay.
And if you can't dance, then just sit in your chair and do a little groovy move. And, you know, you heard it here from the phonologist. And just notice how your mood changes. If you're in a bad mood, notice how your mood changes if you decide to do that, and just free dance like that, and just go with however you feel, and your mood will increase. You'll be happy, and that's what I want to share. And then as far as connecting with me, I have a website, coachkathywhite.com, and it's KATHYWHIT. There you go. And
thank you. And all of that's in the description. So if you didn't catch that, all you got to do is read the description and you'll have all the information as how to stay connected with Kathy and dance through your life. Thank you so much, Kathy, for being here. This has been such a privilege to take that deep dive into your life. Thank you for sharing it. We consider it a privilege and an honor that you would be transparent with us and share your life, letting us in the pages of your own book. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Pamela. I love you too.
It's a treasure to have you here today and to know you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in again. You came right now, and we are so glad that you did, and I know you are too. Would you do us a huge favor? Could you do Kathy a huge favor? I think her story should go viral. What about you? So in order to make that happen, we need you to do a couple of things. As Les Brown always says, like it and share it. So we're asking that you would like this teaching, like this podcast, like this YouTube channel, wherever you're watching it at, and then share it and put some comments in there. You know, help us get those algorithms up and make a difference. Let's let all the world know that the world needs to hear this kind of quality education and sharing. And you can make that possible for us. So we ask that you would do that. Thank you again, everybody, for being here right now. So I want you to know that you are here on purpose, with a purpose, by design, not by default. So right now, go on out there and be the salt and the light everywhere you go. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Ascend Above the Crowd is the newest course by Pamela Henkel. Ascend is a self-paced email course that will come directly to your inbox and will change your mindset and your life. Each week, you will receive lessons, resources, challenges, and journal writings that will help you discover your purpose by design. It's your time to ascend above the crowd. To learn more about Ascend, go to www.purposewithpamela.com. pamela.com/ascend.
Pamela Henkel is the founder of the Purpose Center. Pamela is a mindset mentor, author, speaker, minister, and transformation coach. Her weekly podcast, international radio show, and television show are a lifeline that changes lives and inspires people to discover their individual potential through realizing their purpose by design. Pamela is a natural motivator and has shown many how to find their niche and transform their lives. Although success is an uphill battle, Pamela gives the necessary strategies to flourish, cheering you on every step of the way. Pamela shares from her personal experiences, education, and life as a woman in leadership, utilizing decades of knowledge. Taking the approach of, let's have coffee and chat, she will awaken your dreams and purpose by design. Are you ready for Pamela to help guide you? Email us at purposewpamela.office@gmail.com or go to her website at purposewithpamela.com.